Hi, welcome back to my channel, Scale Model Kit Review Studio, and welcome back to another FanHome Build the Batmobile. I am working on pack number 4, and this time I received 6 stages. That's right, 6 stages. And 6 stages, we'll be building stages 9 through 14. Now, the only thing we're going to be doing through this whole video is working on the engine, and it's a fantastic build. It's a very detailed, this engine is. So if you haven't done so already, sign up for this today. I'm sure there's only so many slots available that they'll take subscriptions for, so do it today before it's too late. And I did put a direct link down below to let FanHome know that you're watching my videos. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome back to Scale Model Kit Review Studio, and welcome back to another FanHome Build the Batmobile from the classic 1966 TV series. This time in pack number 4, I received 6 issues, stages 9 through 14, and we're going to do nothing but work on the engine in these issues, and it's a fantastic beast in itself. George Barris built the Batmobile from the concept car Lincoln Futura, and the engine that was contained in that car was a Lincoln 368 cubic inch. The chassis was an early type Y-shaped backbone perimeter frame that would go in production on the 1956 and 57 Continental Mark II. I must say that the engine's very highly detailed here, and it does look like FanHome got it right with the firing order for this engine, as the spark plug wires do mount a certain way on the distributor cap. So we'll look at that as we go along. Let's look at the parts that came included with this pack. Pack 9, we work on the cylinder head and the first set of spark plug wires. Pack 10, the intake manifold. Pack 11, the right hand side of the engine. Pack 12, the right hand side spark plug wires and spark plugs themselves. Pack 13, we'll work on some of the accessories on the front of the engine, some of the belts and pulleys. And pack 14, once again, more parts for the front, the fan, and some of the plumbing for the fuel lines. So before I begin, I'll go ahead and show you everything we've completed all the way up to stage 8. We've worked on the hood, which is fantastic there. We put the stuff underneath for that. We worked on the wheel and tire. We assembled that fully. The antenna, left hand side of the engine, the oil sump, the alternator, the windshield. That's fantastic there. The transmission itself, that's great. And the roll bar, and I've already noticed some folks are already starting to mod the roll bar and put LEDs for all the red lights on that. That's fantastic in itself. So let's go ahead and get started on stage 9. Let's look at the magazine for stage 9. And starting off with Zelda the Great, the TV show, aired February 9th, 1966, Season 1, Episode 9. Batman number 1, The Great Batman Comics, that's very cool there. And Batman Year by Year, Batman 47. And here's our parts we received. Like I said, it is continuing on with the left-hand side of the engine. And we'll look at that in detail here. Let's get a closer view of the instructions. Here's the parts we received. Cylinder head, valve cover, exhaust manifold, and ignition wires, spark plugs. Very cool there. They always give you a part locator with this. First thing we're going to do, we're going to assemble the cylinder head. Very simple operation there. And continuing with that, a radiator feeding pipe, cylinder head itself fitting on the left-hand side of the engine that we already assembled previous stages. Installing the ignition wires, we need to cut those in 190, 80, 70 millimeter lengths. And we'll start putting on number 1. And we'll do the other 3 right down the line. I'll show you how that firing order looks. It's very cool there. Like I said, it's a 368 Lincoln engine. Let me get the parts. I'll be right back. Here's the parts for stage 9. What they look like in the bag. Let's get a closer look. We have AP screws, CM screws, and MA screws. We have the cylinder head itself, which is made of metal. It's very cool. The valve cover, which has the Lincoln symbol on it. That's true to that. Exactly that. This is made of plastic. Exhaust manifold, which is also made of plastic. I love the metallic finish on that. Looks great. We have the radiator intake hose adapter there. Spark plugs. Spark plug wires. We've got to cut those. We'll fit the valve cover to the cylinder head, and on the cylinder head you can see this is the side where the exhaust mounts to and where your spark plug's going to. And we want to have it go down on that, and it's going to look just like that once it's mounted. 2 AP screws will go into this and hold it together. And tighten this down here. And that's how that looks. Next we'll mount the exhaust manifold onto the cylinder head, and it's just going to slide in like this. And that's how that looks with this coming out the left side here. We're going to install AM screws on this. That's good there. Now we'll go ahead and mount our radiator feeding pipe, and that just goes in right here on this little hole. Press fit, just like that. And that's how that looks there. Now this is going to mount down on the left side of the engine. It's going to mount down just like that. I'm going to turn it over. We're going to put 2 CM screws in on the back side here. Definitely want to put a little oil on the screw. And that's good there, nice and tight. Both those screws are in. That's how that looks. That looks great. Now we'll work on the spark plug wires. And to help us along with the ignition wires and getting them the proper length, they did give us a key, and it is correct. So I measured it just to make sure. So we have 70 millimeters right there, and you can see that for yourself. That does work. So you can go ahead and use that to cut your spark plug wires if needed. I did take the knot out of the wires, and there was a little bit of a kink and all that in the wire. To kind of restore that a little bit, I took a blow dryer on the hot setting and put it on there for a little bit, and it seemed to restore it pretty good. It's not perfect, but it looks good there. So we'll go ahead and cut these to the 70, 80, 90, and 100 millimeter lengths. And we need to cut these off, this tree. We'll mount our first spark plug onto the wire. And this is a shorter wire. So the shorter wire is actually going to go up against cylinder number 5 on the left-hand side of the engine. And that's going to mount right there. Just a press fit. You want to press fit it all the way in. just like that. And it's going to go all the way around to right there. And I want to go ahead and shorten it. I don't want to be sticking out that far. So probably like that. So I'm going to cut off a little bit off of this and mount that right there. And that's how that looks there. Okay, I'll go ahead and do the other 3 and I will be right back. And there you go. All 4 cylinders are installed here, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And if we look at the distributor, they do a good job at telling us where those wires go. And of course we did the 70 millimeter right here. We did the 80 millimeter right there. Did the 90 millimeter. And then lastly we did the 100 millimeter right there. I did cut them. We did have an extra spark plug, and that's how that looks. So that completes stage 9. Let's head over and do stage 10. Let's look at the magazine first. Stage 10. And the TV show here, Season 1, Episode 10, A Death Worse Than Fate. February 10th, 1966. And Great Batman Comics. Detective Comic number 843, highlighted there. Batman Year by Year, so Batman 1948. Very cool. And our parts, so looks like we're going to work on the carburetor and intake manifold. And let's get a closer view of the instructions. And here's our instructions. The car parts first. Like I said, the carburetor and intake manifold is going on here. We have all the parts there. Very detailed, as you can see. A lot going on. Here's a listing of all those parts. The parts locator real quick. And we'll take this through sub-assemblies. I'll take you through it real quickly. I may not show everything on camera, but I'll show you what I did. Second sub-assembly, fitting the topper of the carburetor. Fitting the throttle and control lever. Assembling the vacuum line. Fitting the manifold to the engine block. And fitting the last pipes there. There's the result. Let me get the parts. I'll be right back. Here's phase 10 or stage 10. And that's what the parts look like. Let's get a closer view. I'll show you a close-up of these parts in sub-assemblies. The first assembly we're going to build is the carburetor base. So here's the intake manifold, and here's the intake manifold base. 2 parts for the carburetor themselves, and the hose here, the fuel line. Now this fuel line is the longer one you got. You also received a shorter one, but the shorter one is actually larger in diameter than the fuel line. So if you look closely, you can see there is a definitely difference in size of those tubes. Okay. Next is fitting the top of the carburetor. We'll be using these 3 parts here. Next is fitting the throttle control lever. So that's those 2 parts for that. Next is assembling the vacuum line. We'll be using the smaller diameter pipe from the carburetor and using the larger vacuum line on the other side of this T-fitting. DM screws, AP screws, and the mount for the engine manifold onto the engine block. Gonna install the thermostatic choke into the top of the carburetor base. It is keyed. You can see it has a flat edge. So we'll just take that part of the choke there and we'll insert that. Press fit. That's what that looks like there. Now we'll mount that to the intake manifold. Right there. 4 AP screws go into this. And not too tight so you don't strip it. That's good there. That's what that looks like. Next we'll install the fuel inlet. The fuel inlet has a little hole right there, and then the vacuum line inlet is the other one on the other side. We'll fit that to the top of the base of the carburetor, and that's what that looks like there. We'll put our fuel line onto the vacuum line side. And then we'll put the middle part of our carburetor cover on this, and it's simply going to go down on top. The 2 pins are going to line up to the 2 pins on top here. So the fuel inlet doesn't really matter which way it goes in. The vacuum line, it does. You want it to line up against the middle part of the carburetor to where it fits flush, just like that. And then we'll go ahead and mount that down on top of the carburetor base. And after it's all snapped together, that's what it should look like. It's like a little mini puzzle there. Very fiddly, but it does all go together. All your pins are engaged here, and that's how that looks so far. Now we'll go ahead and put an AP screw into this on top. And that locks all that together. That's how that looks. Now let's move on to the next step. Now we're going to work on the top of the carburetor. This is our flat needle plug and the side of the carburetor plug assembly. It does have an insert there, an opening with a flat on it. We'll take the flat needle, and that's only going to go in one way. Just like that. Okay. That's going to go on top of our top of the throttle body. And it only goes on one way also. Press fits. That's how that looks. And that's going to go on top of our carburetor. Bring over the carburetor. Now we're going to install this on top of the carburetor, and there's a little box on top and this piece on the back, and it's going to go down into those 2 pins. Press fit. Just like that. That's how that looks. Looks good. Now we'll work on our throttle and control lever, and it press fits together too. It only goes in one way. It does have a flat. Just like that. Perfect. That's how that looks. Now we're going to mount that to the intake manifold. And we'll mount this to the intake manifold, and it's going to go on just like that. We're going to put an AP screw into that. That's good there. That's how that looks. Next we have to take the longer, smaller diameter hose, and we're going to cut 2 pieces into 60mm lengths. It doesn't have to be real precise, but my OCD prevents me from doing otherwise. And there you go. When I assemble the vacuum lines, we're going to take the larger diameter line, which is 10M, and that's going to go onto our T-fitting here. Just like that. We're going to take the smaller, the 60 millimeter length line that we cut earlier, and we're going to put that on the other side. It's a smaller fitting. We'll go ahead and mount this to our intake manifold right there in that hole. And that press fits just like that. And the next steps, I went ahead and mounted the manifold bracket to the bottom of the manifold just like that, and larger side on this side opposite the throttle linkage. 2 AP screws went into that. Now we'll go ahead and mount this to our engine block. Bring over the engine block, and it's simply just going to slide down just like that into there. And I'm going to put 1 DM screw into this, and I went ahead and lubricate the DM screw. It's a flange type screw, and that's just going to secure everything down. That's good there. And that's how that looks so far. Looks great. Next, we're going to go ahead and fit the pipes, and we're going to take the fuel line, and that's going to go all the way over here to this part on the side of the distributor vacuum line. That's going to go right there. That looks good there. And the other one is going to go down below it. I'm going to trim it just a little bit. And there you go. That's what they look like. Looks great. And that's all I do with stage 10. Let's head over and do stage 11. Let's look at the magazine for phase 11 or stage 11. Once again, the TV show highlighted here, season 1, episode 11. A riddle a day keeps the Riddler away. February 16, 1966 is when it aired. Very cool there. Comics, The Joker. Very cool. I don't know if you guys have seen my paint up I did with the Joker and Batgirl. I'll put a link down below, but I did a nice statue paint up of that, and you can find that on my channel. Batman Year by Year. Batman 49. Very cool there. Here's our parts. In this phase, you'll assemble the left side block fitting in the oil pan. So there we go. A little less going on there. Let me get the parts. Well, let's look at the instructions real close. And here's our parts for phase 11. Left side of the engine. Fuel pump, fuel filter, fuel hose, oil filter, oil pump. Parts locator again. Assemble the left engine block. We'll put on the looks like the motor mount for that. Fitting the pump, oil pump, connecting the oil pan. Very cool there. Put on the fuel pump, fuel filter. That's what that looks like there. Let me get the parts. I'll be right back. Phase 11 parts. Here they are in the bag. Let's get a closer look. Here's a close-up of those parts. Here's our other side of the engine block. Looks great. Left side. And we'll actually do the spark plug wires in the next phase, phase 12. And of course the oil pump and oil filter going on. The engine mount, which is made of metal. Both of these. Very cool. AM and AP screws. And here's our engine mount, or the motor mount. And remember, we put this together before for the right side. This is the left side. So there's an alignment pin for this. You have both flat edges together like that. And we'll go ahead and put our AM screw into this. I did lubricate the screw with some 3-in-1 oil. And there you go. That's how that looks. Now we'll mount this to the side of the engine block. That's going to go on just like that. We're going to put an AM screw into this from the other side. And there you go, nice and tight. And that's what that looks like there. Next I'll insert the engine pump into this right here. It looks like it goes in at an angle. Press fit. And there you go. It's in there. Next we'll go ahead and install the oil pan onto this. And that's going to get inserted into those slots right there on the bottom. 2 AP screws are going to go into this. That looks good there. And we'll go ahead and hook up our hose now that we installed previously. And I'm going to go ahead and trim it just a little bit. And mount it. Good. That's how that looks there. That looks great. Now I'll assemble the fuel pump. We're going to put the filter bowl on the bottom. It only goes on one way. There's a flat there. Press fit that together. And we're going to hook up one of our fuel pump hose, 11F. Just like that. And the last bit here, we're going to install our fuel pump onto this. And that's going to press fit right there. Looks good. And our oil filter, same thing. It's going to press fit over here on the other side. And that looks good. That's all we do was phase 11. Looks great. Let's head over and do phase 12. And let's move on. Let's look at the magazine for phase 12 and TV shows, cast and crew for season 1, episode 12. When the rat's away, the mice will play. Very cool there. And Batman Comics, The Broken Bat, issue 497 from 1993. Batman Year by Year, Batman 1950. Very cool. And our build instructions. This time we'll assemble the left cylinder head as well as the ignition wires and distributor spark plugs. So we're doing the other side of the engine this time, much like we did in phase 9. That's there. Let's get a close view of this. And here's the instructions again. Here's the parts and the listing of those parts. And just like before, install the cylinder head, valve covers, radiator feeding tube, exhaust manifold, and the spark wires once again. And we get to assemble the two halves of the engine together with the transmission. Very nice there. And again, fitting the ignition wires, we'll have to create 100 millimeter, 110, 120, and 140 millimeter. That's how that goes there for the first one. And where it's located on the distributor, 100 millimeter. Once again, the other side of the engine, the last three. This is very helpful here. It tells where the 120 millimeter goes, the 140 and 110 go. It's very nice. Let me get the parts. I'll be right back. Here's the parts for phase 12. I'll take this out. We'll get a closer view. AM, AP, and CM screws. We have the valve cover itself once again with the Lincoln markings on it. Very nice. Made of plastic. Cylinder head made of metal. Very nice there. Radiator tubing there. The exhaust manifold. I like that. Spark plugs and the spark plug wiring. Notice how they're all wound up. Like I said, when you undo all this, you can go ahead and hit it with a hot hair dryer, and it should get rid of all those little wrinkles and stuff that are found on the wire. And once again, we'll put the valve cover on the cylinder head just like that, and we'll put our AP screws into this. And that's good there. That's how that looks. And we'll put the left radiator feeding tube into this pinhole here. And that's good there. Insert it into that hole right there. Looks level. Now we'll install our exhaust manifold. Just as before, it's going to be coming off this side here. Insert that in. And 2 AM screws go into this. And then the CM screws are going to go through this when it's mounted on the engine, and they tell you to go ahead and drive it in now and take them out, get the thread started. So I put some oil on them. That's good there. Take it out. So that's good there. That's how that looks right now. We'll go ahead and mount this to our engine block. And it's just going to go down like that. Turn it over and put those CM screws in. Those 2 spots right there. And that's good there. That looks good. Nice and tight. That's how that looks both sides. Bring over our other engine half. We'll flip it over. We're going to go ahead and mount the transmission to it. Here's our transmission. And it's going to mount just like that. And we'll bring over our other half of the engine and mate these together just like that. And 2 CM screws are going to go into this right here and right there. You definitely want to put some 3-in-1 oil on the threads. And there you go. Looks good. Wow. And go ahead and take our starter, and we're going to mount that next. There is an alignment pin right there, and it should line up with the pin on the side here. There we go. Fully installed there. Looks good. Now we'll turn this over and start on our plug wires. And just as before, measure this out. This is my 140 millimeter. $120 millimeter. $110 millimeter, and the last one, $100 millimeter. And we still have to cut these off. I'll go ahead and get everything going, and I will be right back then show you the outcome of all these. I did show you how to do all this in phase number 9. Cylinder 8, 7, 6, 5, and it gets wrapped around right there. I'll go ahead and put the other ones on next. 140 millimeter, 120 millimeter, 110 millimeter, and 100 millimeter. And there they all are, mounted on the distributor. 120, 110, 140. And that's all I do in phase 12. We have the engine together now. We'll start working on all the accessories on the front here next. Looks very nice, very detailed. Let's head over, start on phase 13. Let's look at the magazine for phase 13 or issue 13. And we have, once again, TV guide episode here. Season 1, episode 13, the 13th hat. And Batman comics in the Line of Duty from 2003. And Batman Year by Year, Batman 51. Very cool. And we have the instructions here. Assemble the crankshaft pulley as well as the dipstick and water pump. Very nice. And we'll go ahead and look at these a little closer. And here's all the parts for 13. Very cool there. All the parts listed. Parts location. We'll be fitting the dipstick and oil filler pipe first on the cover there. We'll mount a crankcase and water pump assembly. Looks good there. And working on the crankshaft pulley. Very nice. Let me get the parts, I'll be right back. And here's those parts. Here's the front of the engine here, the water pump, oil dipstick, oil cap, crankcase filler, and the crankshaft pulley assembly, AM, RP, and UP screws. Got the cylinder block front here. We're going to install the dipstick, the oil dipstick, onto it. It does have a flat on the end of it, and it's going to go right down there in that hole. So pay attention to that flat, and it should just press fit into it. Being extra careful with that. There we go. That's how that looks. Bring over the crankcase filler cap itself, and that's this right here. We'll go ahead and put the filler cap on top of that. It just press fits. Just like that. Bring over the front of the engine that we put the dipstick on. We're going to bring this over. We're going to go under and on that tab. And that's how that looks. And we'll go ahead and mount this to the front of the engine. And it's going to go just like that. Lines up just like that. I'm going to put 3 AM screws into this. And the 3 AM screws are installed. I will put the water pump on this. It's going to mount down just on top, just like that. We need to get the generator bracket, and we're going to mount that up against the generator here. With the water pump installed, we're going to mount the generator bracket onto that hole right there. And it's going to go down just like that. And a longer UP screw goes into that. And then we're going to line up the bracket to the generator. I loosen the screw here on this and line that up as best as possible, and put our AM screw into this. It's going in the metal, so I lubricated it, and that's tight. And I'm not going to tighten it down all the way just yet. Leave it a little loose because I want to get these other screws started for the water pump. And so I went ahead and I put a screw in here just to keep the water pump lined up, and now I can tighten down this screw for the bracket over here on the generator. And that's good there. That's what that all looks like. And I can go ahead and remove that screw. Now we're going to put in the pulleys. Now for the crankshaft pulley, the first one that goes on is this one right here. I put a little bit of soap and water on it just so it... Next to go on are, we have 2 of these that look like that with the holes in the middle of them. They'll go on next. And another one. Just like that. And that one right there. Then after the two that are installed with the holes, we'll put on this one right here. It doesn't have the holes in it. That goes on next. And lastly, the cover goes on that. And an RP screw goes on the end to lock everything down. That's good. Perfect. And it's a pretty large crankshaft pulley. It's pretty cool. And that's it. That's all I do with phase 13 or issue 13. Let's head over and do the final phase for this pack, phase 14. Let's look at the final phase for pack 4, phase 14. And for phase 14, our TV show is from season 1, episode 14, Batman Stands Pat. And Batman R.I.P. is Batman Comics from 2008. Batman 52, Year by Year for Batman. And our parts we received with this stage. Looks good. So let me get the close-up of the instructions. Here's our parts for phase 14. Compressor pulley, the fan blades, power steering pump brackets, power steering pump cover and pulleys, and power steering reservoir and belts. There's a listing of those parts. Going to assemble the power steering pump first, and then I'm going to fit the pump and pulleys just like that. Once again, adding more pulleys to the front for the compressor and the fan blades, and 2 more belts. Let me get the parts. I'll be right back. Here's the parts for 14. Let's get a closer look. AM, BP, RP, and UP screws. Here's our fan blades, all 3 of those. Here's our pulleys for the compressor and 3 belts. And here's the mount brackets. They are made of metal, both of them. Very cool there. And here's our power steering pump brackets, and there is an alignment tab, so we're going to align that up just like that. You can see that. And we'll line up our first screw, and that looks good. Bring over the power steering pump next, and that's going to go together. Only goes in one way. There's a locating tab on this, so it goes together off that tab. A BP screw goes into this on the back side. That's good there. Go ahead and take this, and we're going to put this through this bracket here. Line it up with alignment tab there, and it will go just like that. We'll put the pulley on, just like that, and an RP screw goes into that. And there you go. That's how that looks. And the last thing, we'll put our reservoir cap on, and it just goes down one way, just like that. bring over our engine, and we'll mount this to the front of the engine. Just like that. And 2 UP screws will go into that. Just until they're snug. That's secured to water pump also. That looks great. Wow. Now we'll go ahead and put our first belt on. And there's a close-up of the belt. They want it on the 3rd shaft. 1, 2, 3, and it's right there. And up to power steering pump. Looks good. Next, I'll install the fan and compressor pulleys. And here's the first one that goes on. I went ahead and put a little oil, vegetable oil, on there. That looks good there. And you want to do that with the other one also. And then this will line up. Next, on top of that, it has 2 nubs that line up. That's good there. And lastly, the front of it. That looks good there. And we'll go ahead and put our fan blade on next. So we need to slot those together. And they'll line up just like that. That there. Fit that into that notch there. Same thing with this one. We'll press fit that into that notch. Then it goes on that pulley. Then we'll go ahead and, after the fan blade is assembled, which you can see there, assembled from the back side, we'll go ahead and put that on the pulley. An RP screw will hold all that together. And we need to line it up with the notch on the back. That's good there. And tighten it down. And that's good there. And now we put our pulleys on this. And second pulley is installed. Around here. Second one back. The second one back. And the second one back. And that's good there. All the pulleys are installed. And there's a shot of the front of the engine. All the pulleys installed. Looks great. All the spark plug wires are installed. I love it. And that completes phase 14 or issue 14. And that completes pack number 4. I had a blast building this engine. We have most of it done already. I must say it is very detailed and it was a lot of fun to build. All the way around. Very detailed. I'm very impressed. That's that Lincoln motor. The V frame. 386 cubic inch Lincoln Futura motor. That completes this video. I completed pack 4, phases 9 through 14. 6 phases were built. You saw them all here. I completed the engine and it's fantastic. If you would like to get this for yourself, head over to FanHome. I put a direct link down below. Click on that link, lets FanHome know you watched my videos, and sign up for it today while it's still available. If you like my content, please subscribe to my channel and smash that like button. Happy modeling, everybody, and take care.